jump now from education to crime. Which is on two ends of a spectrum. Good morning, Daruis Figeuira. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Morning.
Thanks for being so patient. You know, news evolves. Appreciate you being with us this morning. How are you? Long time no see.
Yes, I'm holding on in my old age.
All of us. Except Richard. Richard doesn't get old. Richard pretends that he's this young person. Yeah. Okay. A lot to discuss. We had one of your criminologist colleagues on yesterday, Professor Daruis. So let's start with the issue of the 3D guns and your thought on that startling development.
Well, the whole issue of 3D guns is that you have two fundamental realities. One, how it has been handled by the media and the validating elites, and the reality on the ground. One must expect that 3D printed guns must arrive in Trinidad and Tobago because that is a development within the methodology of transnational organized crime. How we are handling it, how the validating elites in the media handling this reality.
What is a validating elite?
A validating elite are those who sing the chorus of the oligarchy. So
Explain to me.
They don't have the power and privileges of the oligarchy, but they just love to sing the chorus of the oligarchy.
For example.
So there is a specific order of power, and they put out discourse to validate that order of power. So there is no need on their part to understand reality on the ground. Their role is to validate manufactured reality as with 3D weapons.
What is the objective of that? What are they getting from it?
To stir up even more paranoia about crime, as what we saw in the local government election, where you are now proposing pure lunacy to handle our reality on the ground in order to motivate people to go and vote for you. So what you are telling them to do in no way reflects an effective response to the reality on the ground.
I take it here you're referring to Mrs. Pasabi-Sessa's comments about the guns.
I am referring to all the politicians.
Okay. So on all sides.
Yes, because it's a political malaise. And that arises from the politics of race.
So what's the reality on the ground that these politicians are either ignorant of or are being willfully ignorant of, if I'm to read you correctly, in terms of handling the issue of crime?
No, they know the reality on the ground. They're not willing to deal with it. So let me place a fundamental question to the people of Trinidad and Tobago who listen. Since the decade of the 1960s, we have had transnational organized crime in Trinidad and Tobago involved in the illicit trades. We are now in 2023. We have done nothing to turn full face forward to this threat and to deal with this threat since the 1960s. We have allowed it to evolve at its own momentum, never daring to intervene and to impact it, to derail its evolution. And you expect that in 2023, you can be in control of that transnational organized crime reality in Trinidad and Tobago? These people make more money than we make in a year. These people could buy Trinidad and Tobago. And we have never taken the time, the money, and the idea to face up to this reality and to implement the measures that we need to deal with this reality.
Why? Who would benefit from that? From leaving? Who would benefit from maintaining the status quo as you describe it?
Well, who benefits from maintaining the status quo is those who got rich off the status quo, and they rapidly evolve into members of the oligarchy. So, and they are the ones who ensure that they are political investors. So, for example, let's go back to 3D printed guns and this ghost gun talk and all kind of things. Every single gun manufactured in the world, whether it has a serial number on it or not, is a ghost gun. Because when you manufacture a gun in a listed factory, nobody takes a ballistic impression of that gun, store it on a database for you to come and access it in the future. So you make a 3D printed gun, you use that gun, you leave your brass on the ground, you leave your shots in human bodies or in hard objects. We recover those shots. We recover your brass on the ground. We get a ballistic profile of that gun. Any day we bust in on you and we find that gun in your possession, we match it to our ballistic profile. We have you because the gun have bodies on it. So what is the big mesmerization to paranoid people even further with this ghost gun talk?
Well, why would, if the, according to the narrative has been that, well, borders are porous, illegal guns are coming to the country ad nauseum unchecked, we have sophisticated weaponry, including AR-15, etc. Why would the criminal element now evolve if there are low-level and high sophistication weapons available coming in unchecked to 3D printing gun? What would prompt that change?
Because there are fundamental questions that is not being debated in the media to educate the public on the issues of the efficiency, reliability, and long-term stability of a 3D weapon, especially an automatic weapon on an AR-15 platform or AK-47 platform. Nobody is doing that debate to educate the people.
Well, I just asked you, why the transition to that as opposed to what seems to be widely available to some criminals? What is the advantage of moving to 3D weapons?
There is no advantage because it has serious problems of its longevity, its reliability, because it's moving parts, it is molded in plastic. And you have to take metallic parts, place it in the 3D printer for it to be injected into the plastic moving parts, because you're not going to make a plastic firing pin for the weapon. So that is the fundamental
question.
If
you're saying that issues with 3D printed weapons, this is what I'm getting, correct me if I'm wrong, why would the criminals invest in a 3D gun printing plant if there are issues with the weapons themselves?
Because 3D printing is a fad that was invented by persons who are peripheral to the game. I could tell you now how a professional sicario deals with weaponry, and it's certainly not 3D printing. So the one that we saw being shown on television that you're interdicted to in Trinidad and Tobago, you have salient questions that arise about the efficiency of that weapon. So the fundamental question is, where's the barrel? Where's the barrel? So that is just another talk that came up out of this ghost gun old talk. But the fact of the matter is not a significant minority of guns of ghost guns are in fact 3D printed guns. The overwhelming majority of them are standard metal guns made by hand.
So you're suggesting that the attention being placed to 3D printed guns should not be as important as the attention to be placed on the traditional weapons and or locally handmade guns. And are there locally handmade guns being made?
No, that is a high precision craft that is passed down from generation to generation. The fact of the matter is, a professional sicario, it has reached a stage now with transnational organized crime where the professional sicarios, they purchase semi-finished moving parts of AR-15s in the United States of America, finish them in their own workshops, and put together their own guns, perfectly working AR-15s and AK-47s that they manufacture semi-finished parts for and finish it themselves, and they have already learned the means to beat a ballistic profile on a weapon.
You keep referencing sicarios, which, correct me if I'm wrong, these are Colombian high-level drug cartel operatives. Is that correct? That's what sicario is?
The best, you have more than Colombians who are sicarios. You have any and everybody who's a
right. So is it that you're thinking sicarios are operating in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's why we're mentioning it here?
But as long as you have transnational organized crime operating in your country, sicarios move in and out.
So you're suggesting these individuals are operating in Trinidad and Tobago and importing the AR-15s in parts and reassembling in Trinidad and Tobago. That's what you're saying?
Wherever a sicario operates, they operate with their own weaponry. They don't use hand-me-downs. They don't use guns with bodies on it. So you use a weapon for a job, and when you finish, you strip the weapon down, or you get rid of it. That is how you beat the ballistics profile. You don't leave your brass on the ground.
So what's the primary mistake law enforcement and the state of Trinidad and Tobago is making in interdicting these issues?
Perpetually seeking to catch up. Always behind the curve since 1960s. Never.
So what do they need to get ahead of the curve? Because you're saying that there's been a big gap in terms of their efficacy in dealing with transnational crime. So what do we need to do as a country, or what would you suggest that we need to do to bridge that gap?
Well, in order for us to have our national security apparatus be restructured to face the deep threat, you have to end the bipolarity of the TTPS. The TTPS is a bipolar organization because of the demand of politics. So the politicians have defined, even before 31st of August 1962, and it continues since then, that the TTPS task is social control. But you cannot police social control and engage with transnational organized crime simultaneously. It's one or the next. So, for example, in the United States of America, in the ghettos of the race minorities in America, where policing is social control, transnational organized crime runs these ghettos. Learn from that, Trinidad and Tobago.
I don't know if you could explain a little bit more what you mean by bipolar in terms of the TTPS. What you mean by that bipolarity that you're talking about precisely?
What is demanded for social control of your own population in specific spaces, marginalized spaces, And what is demanded from a police service to engage with transnational organized crime and actually impact the operations? It's two entirely different ideas, two entirely different discourses, two entirely different methodologies. And in Trinidad and Tobago, from the 31st of August 1962 to present, to engage with transnational organized crime has always lagged behind because we have had this long-standing public denial of the operation of these groups in Trinidad and Tobago. So now that we have had the admission from a police commissioner that her duty is to engage with transnational organized crime, the assault on her is like out of this world. Because all everybody wants from her who opens their mouth and bumps their gum is social control. Refusing to understand that what the nexus between transnational organized crime and its evolution in Trinidad and Tobago and the wanton display of criminality in this country. So social control has collapsed.
What do you make of the drug find of Guayagüari and the impact on what's happening on the East Coast?
No, that as the case with the 3D printer and as the case with the talk about the Met Lab, all three of them aspects that have been placed in the public domain on the drugs washing ashore simply don't add up. It don't add up. Because when you look at the trafficking methodologies that are used in the Caribbean, the picture of the cocaine kilo bricks released by the TTPS that washed ashore in Guayagüari, the first thing that struck me when I studied that photo is where is the wrapping on those bricks? That is normal procedure for when you are moving kilo bricks via this ocean. There's a specific water seal wrapping that you put on your bricks and you place it within specific bales because you are running it on boats to your endpoint. The kilos are water soaked, and they are water soaked to the point where they have sold, they have been stolen, they have been breached, etc. But the message in the picture released by the TTPS is the trademark on the bricks. And if you understand what is a trademark on a kilo brick, those who find these kilos wash ashore with that mark on those bricks should understand from the beginning, leave it right there.
What do you interpret as what you saw as the mark on the brick? What does that tell you?
When I saw the mark on the brick, I get cold sweat. Because the organization that owns those bricks will spare no effort to send a lesson out on the ground, which they did in August month, that you take our product, you're dead. It's as simple as that.
Should the police know what organization it is by the markings on the bricks?
Well, they're supposed to.
Afraid to ask what organization it is. I said, I mean, if you are able to identify an organization from the markings on the bricks, I would imagine the TTPS can do the same and know where this shipment came from Would that be correct?
Well, I will tell you, Colombian paramilitary seeking a pipeline to Europe.
It would be, based on what you know of the organization, because there's so many theories rolling around, would it be sea transport, air transportation? What would it normally be?
Yeah. So there was speculation. There was speculation that it was a flight that was going to Grenada. You heard that too.
Yeah, but even if you're looking to fly to Grenada and drop it in Grenada, the fact of the matter is it wrapped wrong. But it is in search of a pipeline to Europe. That is what they are doing in the Caribbean now.
In search of? So what are you suggesting? It's not been established yet?
No, because they have long depended on America and the American cocaine market. And the American cocaine market has collapsed because of fentanyl. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago should know that they have started interdicting fentanyl being transported by mules in Venezuela. So that means it's here.
So should we be looking out for a fentanyl epidemic here? Because I'm seeing it over major cities all over the US. It's destroying so many lives.
Well, fentanyl has collapsed the cocaine market in America. And that has put a major shot on the Colombian suppliers and their Mexican allies. So these same people are now rushing into the Caribbean, rushing into Europe, looking for a toehold in Europe, which they never bothered to enter. But they have lost America, and they are therefore desperate.
Going back to the cocaine that washed ashore that you said those people should have known about the packaging and identify. I know, well, that is to leave alone. What do you expect to happen in the coming weeks? Because according to police reports, or some reports, I can't confirm with this police reports, there has been a death associated, a murder associated with people trying to recover it, and the areas are being terrorized by persons seeking to recover what they feel may have been taken up by residents. What do you expect? How do you expect this to evolve?
Well, if what you must understand, in July month, the murder toll fell below 15 Trinidad. And in August month, we were also headed to fall below 50. The murder toll in Trinidad and Tobago is now trending down after the highs of 2022 into the first half of 2023. It is now going south. The killing that ensued over that mad drive for kilo bricks. And they talk about how you have US dollars washing ashore and things like that. That is what put our murder toll in August above 50. That is what sent it above 50, because other than that, it was ending up below 50.
Is that, in your opinion, through the works of the police service?
Well, everybody can afford to stand up and claim it. Because if you had a police commissioner who up to today claims the miracle of 2020, anybody thereafter could claim a decline in crime.
So then what do you think, given what you've described as the cartels looking for a new route to Europe, because the fentanyl epidemic in the US has disrupted the cocaine system through the Caribbean to North America. What do you feel will come out of this new scenario for Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in relation to finds like the bricks in Guayari? What do you think we can expect in the next couple of months, if what you say is accurate?
What always happens, product washing up on a shore is an indication of the volume of product that is moving through your space. So, for example, product washing up is common in Puerto Rico. It's common in the Dominican Republic. So that means that Trinidad and Tobago is in play. Now, if you are looking for a new pipeline to Europe, can you leave out Trinidad and Tobago? All the urea ships, all the methanol ships, all the tankers that leave Trinidad carrying bulk commodities to Europe, can you not want to attach your product to those ships?
Interesting.
So everything that is leaving Trinidad to go to Europe is on the priority list to infiltrate, penetrate, and to carry product on.
You mentioned earlier on this class of persons who you call oligarchs, who have not been stopped since the 1960s and have established themselves in the country in terms of what you suggest they are engaged in. Do you think they can be stopped? Or are they untouchable at this stage?
Well, the fundamental reality is to stop them, you have to have a case against. So the question is, either the case comes in the form of an extradition warrant from the United States of America, or you build the case locally. Take your choice.
And is this a money trail case or a drug attachment to a particular person or organization case, or both?
It can be anything. It can be anything. What people in Trinidad and Tobago must understand is that persons who were selling kilo bricks to big shots in Trinidad and Tobago have made and are making federal jail in America for drug trafficking. So if America has the will, America can collect the information on any one of them in Trinidad and Tobago who was involved with those persons who are now or who have passed through the federal system.
Let me ask a different kind of question. For the last 60 or so years, the US and Europe have gone through, and other areas, but primarily those, different waves of addiction driving different levels and different types of criminality. So you went through heroin, then you went through cocaine, then you went through methamphetamine, now you're going through fentanyl. You can't, those levels of enterprise cannot be driven without a need, a demand. So is it, as a criminologist, in your opinion, that the human condition is so conditioned now to need this kind of addiction, that it will always be driving some sort of chemical addiction on a large scale to drive this kind of enterprise?
Well, you see, the basis of our addiction is a brain that becomes addicted. We are a desiring animal. And we have this brain that becomes addicted. So it is not the person who is addicted. In addiction studies, we learn it's not the person who is addicted, it's their brain who is addicted. And there's actually
we substitute dopamine and serotonin production by absorbing these chemicals. So your brain changes, right? So is it that the drug smugglers, and it's not only drug smugglers, to me it's cigarette, it's sugar, it's all kind of thing. But of course, the ones that are illegal are those drugs, because cigarettes and alcohol and sugar do much of the same thing in terms of your brain physiology to make you want more and more and more. They're not, in some cases, as devastating as heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, methamphetamines, but the process of addiction is the same in terms of your brain operation. So is it that we can never, as human beings, get past the demand because of our neurology?
Yes. And what we have learned from studying the drug trade is that supply creates demand because of that nature of that desire in brain. So what we are seeing now, what you mentioned the list, is that there is now a strategic shift from plant-based alkaloid drugs to synthetic drugs. All those who continue to depend upon plant-based drugs, the heroin and the cocaine, they are finished. The market has collapsed. So what we see happening now is that the area of the world with the biggest revolution in the illicit trades is Europe. Because in Europe, they have pioneered a cocaine revolution simultaneously with synthetic drugs. So whilst they are flooding Europe with cocaine, you have these drug labs all over Europe, and especially in the Netherlands, pumping out synthetic drugs. So the heroin and the cocaine boys, they are in serious trouble.
Is it an orchestrated transition to change the power brokers?
Of course. It is a specific business policy that was formulated by the Mexican transnationals to get away from plant-based alkaloid drugs, because you are tied to growing plants that you continuously attack. Whereas when with my switch to synthetic drugs, I source my precursors from all over the world. And then I end up putting together small labs all over the world, putting together these precursors and doing the finished product.
Because the labs are easier to hide. You don't need a big field.
Yes. You don't need no field of plants to reap. So you
should we be wary of a consumer fentanyl issue in Trinidad and Tobago?
Of course. That is the next stage. It all depends now on the marketing of the products and the willingness of the market in Trinidad and Tobago to change now to these synthetic drugs.
What are the societal signs we should look for?
Well, the physical signs, you have to learn the pharmacology of the drug, right? But what you will notice immediately is that with a range of synthetic drugs being put on the streets, the quantum of money change that is involved in the trade changes dramatically. Because remember, with synthetic...
But we had a situation recently where a national, I think a Chinese national, was caught with a lab somewhere in Trinidad and Tobago. So is that one of the signs we should be looking at? All of a sudden, these little labs popping up. If we caught one, we can presume there may be others.
But that was a meth lab, right?
Yeah, a meth lab.
But my personal point of view, I wanted to know if he was lopsided in his brain enough to put a meth lab where they say a meth lab was. So you intended to burn down the whole high-rise upscale apartment building, or what?
Well, there's a tendency in this country for upscale apartments not to be rated. A tendency, I see.
Yes. But
okay.
But when you're doing meth in that, there's also a tendency for you to burn down the whole place.
Well, he didn't burn down the place. Unfortunately, they found him. Congratulations to TTPS, and I hope they find others. Daruis Figeuira, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Always great to talk to you. Interesting perspective that is not normally the mainstream perspective or narrative as you see that's being propagated.
Thank you.